I can see Dan in the green room just making faces during the whole thing. You can hear him. His mic is live. Be quiet, Dan. All right. So, hey, welcome everybody. This 5 Watt Live is brought to you with the support of TrueFire. More about my good friends from TrueFire at the middle of the stream. Yeah, I love that intro. I've never had a chance to be able to use the old single chord intro from TPS. Totally stole it for the intro today. And I love when Dan goes from Elvin Lee mode over to Wembley Stadium by stepping on the protein all of a sudden there. Anyway, I've been watching TPS since the very first episode. So our guest today is a real treat for me. And I hope we all have a lot of fun. I hope a lot of people can be here. I appreciate it. So let's get the commercial stuff out of the way. See the description for the link to my online store for t-shirts, hoodies, and hats. Also, the Friends of 5 Watt on Patreon there if you want to stay in closer touch with me. If you've been thinking about starting a YouTube channel, but you haven't gotten going on that, you can buy my YouTube Mastery for Musicians course. I capture everything I've learned both on my own and from my mentors like Rick and Tim Pierce. It's on sale. Again, probably coming up at the next holiday. 5 Watt World Barber Electronics overdrive pedals are also available on Reverb and directly from David if you're overseas. And the new Plus pedal's been getting a lot of traction down in Nashville. All the links are in the description. Beve is here today. Beve, the moderator to the stars and to me. So it's great to have Beve here. The music in the intro was, of course, Daniel Steinhardt, our guest today, and let's get him on screen. And without much further ado, there. See, I did this in record time. I'm only 4 minutes in. I'm just still yammering on. It's worth it to have the guest here. Here we go. Let's see. There he is.
Keith!
Exactly. How you doing? That's right.
Yeah, awesome, mate.
All right. So I told Dan that I haven't had a guest on in a while. So we were going to do this. I have a lot of questions I sent him. But when I had Tim Pierce on, we did something that David Barber came up with, something he calls it the 5 Watt 15. And it's based on the way Colbert does these questions or used to do questions with famous people. And Tim loved it. Tim just couldn't stop laughing. So no pressure. So we're going to do those first today. We're going to do the 5 Watt 15 first. And just to put it out there, this is going to add context to the whole day. These are really short answer questions. You probably could go long on any of them, but they're kind of like one phrase, one word, even answers.
And I will do my best. I will do my best.
All right. I mean, it's not like you to digress. It's not like either of us to digress. No. All right. All right. Ready? Best overdrive.
That's it. Kingsley Page.
Thank you. What's one guitar or amp that you own that you really should sell?
Oh, man.
They're all equally unfair. It's just a question. We're not going to start taking bids in the chat.
I have an old acoustic that I haven't played in a couple of years, and it's just a sort of mid thing. It's a Tanglewood, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I need to sell that one. There we go.
Give it to your daughter. You'll be good. All right. Scariest gig.
Scariest gig. Tin Spirits supporting Marillion on they have these big weekends they do every couple of years, and this was in Holland. And, 5,000 people playing original prog tunes. There you go.
Nice.
That was pretty scary.
Jimi Hendrix or Chet Atkins?
Chet Atkins.
Have you ever asked someone for their autograph?
Yeah.
Who was it?
The last person I asked for his autograph was Johnny Marr. He gave me his new book, and I asked him to sign it for me, which he graciously did.
That's great. Favorite guitar moment in history? Very on brand for 5 Watt World here.
When Johnny Greenwood kicked in the chorus for Creep, it was on... what TV show was it on? And the song starts off, and then you hear this, and it just hit like a sledgehammer. That was for me, everything changed after that.
Great. Favorite guitar case smell?
I'll probably get in trouble for this, but it used to be in Australia, you could smoke in pubs when you were playing. And I had this Pacifica that I'd played for years, and like loads of gigs with it. And there was something about the old stale cigarette smoke of the case that I really liked.
That's great.
Just put me back in the rock. It was rock and roll.
Yeah,
loved that.
Least favorite guitar case smell?
When I first got this guitar and I opened up the case and the nitro hadn't gone off properly, and it was this acrid, it wasn't right. And for years later, I was scraping the nitro off the back of the neck with my thumbnail. Just hadn't cured. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, interesting. Flat or round wound?
Round wound. I'd love to say flat and be cool, but no. My jazz guitars have round wound on.
I think when I asked that, I think Tim said yes. Tim cheated. Tim's a studio guy. He totally cheated on some of these questions. He's great. Favorite YouTube channel? Do you have a favorite channel?
Yeah, I would say Tim Pierce. Yeah, I love, he's so musical, but I'm a massive Crowded House fan, and the stories of him recording with Neil. And he just has the best stories. And it just, and I've never met Tim. I kind of feel like I know him. I'm sure you get this, and I'm already digressing, but people who watch your YouTube channel, they feel they know you. And with Tim, I feel I know him. It's like, and I think he's such a beautiful cat, and I love his guitar playing, and he has the best stories. So, Tim Pierce.
Yeah, and he is the happiest guitar player on the planet.
Yeah, you hear that in his playing. Totally, you hear the joy. I love that.
And he's just a massively generous guy. I've done a couple of videos where I reached out and I said, hey, can I use this clip from this video you made? He's like, no, I'll just do something fresh for you. Like, no, I didn't call Tim Pierce and ask him to make up a song that sounds like the Beatles and play it on a borrowed Rosewood Telecaster that he got from a guy down the road and a 62 Casino that he borrowed from another friend for my video. But he did all that for the Beatles video that I made.
Amazing. That's amazing.
That's him. You get to listen to one song for the rest of your life. What is it?
Oh, man. Simon and Garfunkel, America.
What guitarist am I thinking?
The live version.
Oh, okay.
Recorded in New York, the big park they've got there. And I think it was recorded
in Central Park.
In Central Park.
The big one, that big show.
Yeah. It's astonishing. Two of the best recorded live guitar solos. And it's, just joyous. Yep, that'd be.
Excellent. This is a version of the one Colbert did. Colbert used to do, what number am I thinking of? What guitarist am I thinking of?
Robin Ford.
No. Good guess, though. Always a good guess. That's why it's funny, because it's never the correct one. I was thinking of Billy Gibbons because I just sent a book to a guy who's in the chat that I had of Billy's stuff. So when is a guitar part finished? When you're working on something.
It's never finished. It's only ever abandoned.
That's great. That's a good answer. That's it. That's the 15. Nice job.
Brilliant. That was awesome.
Oh wait. There's a bonus question. What song do you wish you'd written?
Grace by Jeff Buckley.
Wow. No hesitation.
No. I ever since that song has come out, periodically I would imagine myself having written that song, and just favorite album of all time. that song. Yep.
That's great. Have you ever seen the Alan Hines talking about Buckley when he was in school? That he was like this total Alan Holdsworth head, and he was this prog guy. And the
Dude.
Yeah.
It's amazing. There's videos of him playing back in New York City, just on, and it's like, the early Genesis tune from Lamb Lies Down on Broadway.
Right.
Which actually Tin Spirits we did a cover of on our first album.
Oh, right.
And I've got a really sad story about Jeff. Well, sad for a number of different reasons, but I was on tour in Australia and with an artist called Max Sharam, and we did loads of touring, and Jeff used to come out to Australia quite a bit. And we just finished a tour, and Jeff was there, and the manager called and says, "Hey guys, if you want to go and see Jeff tonight, I can get you in."
Mm-hmm.
And you can. And we were just exhausted. And he said, "He'll be back in 6 months or something." I thought, I'm going to have to see him then, because I couldn't see straight. I was so tired. And then he'd passed a few months later, and I never got to see him, which is just devastating. But anyway. Yeah.
Somebody chimed in from the chat, wants to know, wants to add one here. Just Playing Bass, who's just a regular, who's a regular here, says, nice. Dan, hi. What's the Desert Island album? The album for you?
It's either Grace by Jeff Buckley or OK Computer by Radiohead. I could take either one of those two. If I could have them on alternate days, I'd really appreciate it. And then if I could add a third one, it would be Together Alone by Crowded House. Those three,
you're good.
I'm happy, man. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so I'm going to remind everybody, if you have questions for Dan, put them in the chat with a question mark, and I'll circle back and make sure people try to get in there. I have a lot of questions, but I don't want to dominate. Okay, I'm going to dominate. It's my show, but I don't want to. I will try to get to your questions as well. So the obvious place, the typical thing would be to go back to first guitar and stuff, but I want you to talk, and you started to do it before we were on air, talk about the origins of TPS. TPS is such an institution now. I don't know if that's how it feels to you being in front of the camera, but to all of us that have watched you for 10 years now, right? You guys just had a 10 years. We should all buy the t-shirt. Absolutely. So yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I've known Mick since 2004. So Mick was the editor of a magazine called Guitar Buyer, and Mick did the first review ever of one of our products. So when I got to the UK, which I moved in 2002, and I tried to get the gig rig off the ground in Australia, but it's a massive country with a tiny population. I just couldn't get any traction. I got to the UK and people were interested in the idea, at least. So found an engineer and we started working and come up with our first product in 2004. And I'd been reading this magazine that I loved. So in Australia, as a kid growing up in Brisbane in the 80s, America and the UK felt very far away. And as a guitar nut, we didn't have a lot of money, but I'd save up and buy guitar player and stuff, and I just cut out all the pages and have my walls just plastered with Guitar Player magazine. I was infatuated by everything about it. And getting to the UK, where there's a lot of big artists and stuff, stuff finally was able to happen. But I'd always read magazines, and the Guitar Buyer had the best content and the best editing, people who really knew what they were talking about. Because the stuff that I was doing back then, and still now, it's so incredibly niche. When the Pro 14 came out, it was a big box that cost 800 quid and didn't make any sound. It's like, yeah, let's sell that.
Line them up.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought, reading this magazine, I thought maybe these guys will actually get it. And they did. And I met Mick and we became friends. And Mick then moved on to be the editor of Guitarist magazine, which is a job he'd always wanted. He had worked at Guitarist before, as like a junior editor or something. And then the offer came up to be the editor of this new magazine. But he said to Guitarist, if the job of editor ever comes up, please let me know, because that's the job I want. Anyway, it came up. He got that job. And, you know, he'd come down and borrow pedals from me for photo shoots and stuff, and we'd always, you know, talk about things. I came into this business as a guitar player. I have no idea about business and strategy and marketing, blah, 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 blah. But Mick was someone who, whenever I called, he'd always pick up the phone and was always happy just to talk things through, because he knows everyone. He is one of the most switched on people I've ever met in my life, ever. And I really feel honored to call him a very close friend. You know, we've been through a lot in the 10 years, but the idea, the way it started was, and we've just filmed a 10th anniversary like special where we go through this in detail. But we were at NAMM, and I was trying to come up with ideas with, you know, how do I get this business going? And Mick says, okay, I'll come on board and I'll be your consultant, you know, and he calls it insultant. Yeah. But he said, I'll come on board and we'll give ideas. And so I went to his house, and he had the whiteboard out and pens and everything ready to have this big meeting. He goes, before we start, have you seen this? And he pulls out his Klon. And I'm like, oh, man, I have one of those, but I sold it. Anyway, 2.5 hours later, we've been banging on about pedals for the whole time and gear and stuff. And we didn't get any work done. And we kept trying to have these meetings, and what was apparent was Mick was also understood about the connection and what can happen when you feel connected to your tone. And that was something I was always fascinated in. I didn't really know at that point how great a guitar player he was. I'd seen little bits and pieces, but I hadn't seen him unleash as yet. But he was someone that was really passionate about the idea of feeling connected, and then when things flow. For me, that's an essential thing, because if I'm not connected, and anyone that watches the show for any great period of time will be able to tell you, I can sound like crap. You know, and that's not being modest. Mick is the sort of person who can pick up anything, and he just has that touch and feel, and it can just sound great. I'm heavy-handed, and there are certain bits of gear that other people will pick up and sound amazing through. Yeah. But when I feel connected, the way I put it is, stuff comes out that I haven't practiced, right? And it's really interesting. And so we started these conversations, and Mick was like, yeah. You know, he understood that, and it was like, wow, we really on this wavelength. Anyway, we're at NAMM. He'd just left Guitarist magazine, and he was touting for work as a video, content creator. And while we were there, I released G2 a couple of years before, which was our next generation of pedal switcher, and things were kind of going. We had some great artists on board, had Andy Timmons on board, and these are just people who had found it and loved it, and and I was really encouraged about the way it was going. And then while we were there, Boss released the ES8 switcher on that weekend. On Saturday morning, I wake up, there's a gear mag that comes out at NAMM, that, on the Thursday, Friday and Saturday. And I couldn't believe it. I thought that was the end of the business. Boss have basically, just seen what we did and said, we can do that. And I was devastated. But Mick was like, you don't realize what Boss have done for you. They've just legitimized everything that you've been doing for the past, 10 years. Right. And it turned out to be great.
Yeah, this is a really big company saying, you had this great idea, such a good idea. We're gonna get in and play with you.
There you go. And Mick and I've been out to Boss and filmed with them, and I love those guys.
Sure.
it was fascinating actually, because I didn't know what to expect. And I tell you what, those engineers that work at Boss are as passionate as anyone I've ever met about gear. I sat down with Yoshi before he retired, and him and I had a 2-hour conversation about capacitors. Because Yoshi, before he became head of Boss, he started his career assembling Space Echoes. He was on the assembly line. And in Japanese tradition, he worked his way up. And while he was there, he said, I want to learn about something else. And so he'd work during the day, and at night he'd do these courses and then come back, work during the day. And then eventually ends up being the head of Boss. And he was, so anyway, I love all those guys at Boss.
So you get legitimized. I'm going to pull you back in. So you get legitimized. Sorry, no, it's okay. It's all right. Everybody's going to love this. But
so here's what happened.
Yeah.
We were walking towards NAMM, and even with all that going on, I'm like, Mick, we have to focus and try and get some sort of direction. We're at NAMM, Hall E. Back in that day, it was the kid in a candy shop. It was ridiculous. Anyway, we're walking. There's a half-hour walk because I booked a hotel. I looked at a map and I thought, that hotel looks close. And it was nowhere near. So it gave us a half-hour walk to and from NAMM every day. And while we were walking, we were just talking about gear that we'd seen that we thought was amazing. And Mick says, why don't we just do this? I'm like, what do you mean? Let's just talk about gear. Let's just talk about the stuff that we find interesting, and maybe people will get something out of it. And we'll have G2 front and center. We'll never talk about it. It'll just be there doing its job.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, fantastic. And we started doing that, but then it became apparent very quickly that this was something else, And so because it started off, Pedal Show started off in the Gig Rig channel, and then we took it out of the Gig Rig channel and started its own thing.
Yeah.
Because we knew fairly quickly that it was really interesting. We, obviously we weren't the first duo on YouTube. Lee Anderton and Rob
Chapman.
Chapman, they had an amazing thing, but there were a few things that we did, especially the focus around pedals, and the other thing was we weren't sponsored by anyone. We didn't have to sell anything. As I mentioned before, one of the earliest and most important decisions we ever made was that we would never take any money from any manufacturer ever to feature anything on the show. And I thought, fantastic, we'll never make any money, but that's great because it's a laugh. But what that meant was we were free to talk about anything we wanted to talk about. If one of us had an idea or an epiphany or just wanted to try something, we were just free to do it. And, because a lot of the gear that I use, you just can't buy anymore.
Right. But it's fun to talk about. Yeah, I asked Beato.
It's fun to talk about because it ended up being about the concepts, not about the gear.
Right. Yeah. Or the historical moment in time when it arrived. I did a video, the only 2 pedal short histories I've ever made were the history of the Tube Screamer. And then I turned to Beato and I was like, so what other pedals? He's like, oh, Memory Man. That's the only other pedal that's worth doing a whole video on. And he was completely right. But at the time you couldn't, the original ones were getting expensive and all that kind of stuff. But he's like, no, you still got to do it. And it's not a history of all Memory Men. It's a moment in time look at what that was. And you do that. You guys do that so well. You give context for how something grew. One of my favorite early videos that you did was you had Josh Scott on, and you did a history of distortion. Or overdrive and it was just this incredible, I think, light bulb moment probably for everybody that's in the chat. So so
no, it was wonderful. And Josh was on our channel like back in the early days, but way before JHS was their YouTube channel. They were doing loads of Instagram stuff, I think, at the time, but they hadn't had a channel yet. And I remember I went down and picked him up from the airport, and because he'd always wanted to visit, he was a massive. He was Tolkien and C.S. Lewis fan. So I took him down to the Eagle and Child in Oxford, which is where they all used to get together and drink.
Yep.
And I got on great with him, and we had him on the show a couple of times, and he was a fascinating guy, and obviously, and then their channel does their thing, and it's amazing.
Yep.
But he's great.
Let's do some questions from the chat, since we burned 20 minutes on the first question.
So I'm so sorry.
no, I knew it would be, and I knew that we would have way more.
Feel free to slap me around. Feel free to just rein me in. I don't
know if I'd get that much support from the chat. I actually was on a phone call, I told you, with Tom Jones from TV Jones Pickups earlier, and in the middle of the call, he got the notice that Ozzy Osbourne had passed.
Yeah.
And he was talking. So Mark Spurgeon, who's a regular here, wants to know your thoughts about Ozzy passing.
It's funny, man, because I didn't come to Sabbath until later. I was brought up in a very religious family, and that music was strictly taboo. And it wasn't until I was in my late teens and someone played me some Sabbath, and I was like blown away. The guitar sounds were unreal, and then hearing this guy sing the riff, and obviously there were melodies and there were times he'd just sing the riff, and I just thought there was something so cool about it. And then getting into it a bit, and then listening to Diary of a Madman, and and I was always in it for the guitar playing, and hearing Randy Rhoads with Ozzy, and he had a real knack for finding amazing guitar players to work with.
Yeah.
But you've got to, Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath, a real moment in time that changed music, definitely. The power and energy of those old shows. There's some amazing footage of them in the 70s, and you see these huge old analog valve PAs, and just for the vocals.
Yeah.
And these wall of amplifiers, they're all on, they're all cranked, and Geezer out there. Just that's one thing about Sabbath. We so often we think of Tony Iommi doing his thing, and he's incredible. Mm-hmm. Then you listen to the bass, and it's incredible. It's like listening to Billy Sheehan play on Eat 'Em and Smile with Steve Vai. That it's that level of importance with the supporting of the massive tone.
Or the way Billy always talked about Dusty being a second lead guitar part that was just low.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. But because I sing as well, and I've just always done it. My family have always sung, and I've always sung, I've always had gigs because I can harmonize.
Right.
Knowing what it takes to step out in front of a loud band and sing, and then Ozzy stepping out in front of that, and just being this energy, and he just had this way of bringing people in, and you couldn't, as much as I was into the music, when you see that live footage, you can't take your eyes off him.
Yeah,
he's
absolutely
amazing. Yeah, so he had an incredible life, and thank you, Ozzy, for your incredible contribution to music, and you changed it for better and forever, and thank you.
Amen. I'm going to break to the TrueFire ad, and we'll come right back. We've got a lot of questions in the chat. Chuck Miller wants to know the details of Dan's Telecaster. I think that would open it up to a 3-hour broadcast, so maybe we won't do that one when we come back. We'll do an easier one, but I appreciate the question because, yeah, exactly. So, all right, break away. I'll be right back.
I always promote lessons over new gear, so TrueFire has been the perfect partner for 5 Watt World. I'm interested in all kinds of music, and by taking advantage of TrueFire's All Access Pass, I can always find something to scratch the itch I have for learning more about guitar. As a viewer of 5 Watt World, you get an exclusive 50% discount on the All Access Pass, or you can take a 35% discount on any of the courses in the catalog by using the dedicated links in the video description. I really enjoy TrueFire, and I'll bet you will too. Sign up using the link in the description to support 5 Watt World and get some great lessons at the same time. practice smart, and play hard with TrueFire. I'd like to thank TrueFire for their support in making this section of the video.
Also, TrueFire is running a special right now where you can actually get a taste of All Access for 1 month for just $1. So it always feels like the joke when I was a kid, you get the first one for free, little girl. So this is that, and I think that's an amazing thing. You can get so much music for just $1. And actually, I was just sitting doing video lessons with Matt Schofield this morning. So let me get Dan back here. Guest live. Here we go. All right. So I'm going to do an easier question. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say I was with Matt here last week.
Oh, that's great.
I don't know if you can see it. It's just off to my left here.
If I put you on the screen, I can't do it. Sorry.
No. Oh, hang on. Here we go. If we can see it here. Okay.
The low rent technology.
So it's a Fender Vibratone.
Oh, right.
And we did a show a while ago, and we had a Vibratone in, and I was so blown away by the sound of the thing. I got a message from Matt saying, hey, I've got one at my parents' house I haven't used in 20 years. You're welcome to hang on to it for as long as you like. And he turned up here with it last week. And
what a guy.
I've known Matt for, ever since I moved to the UK for like 20 years. And Matt is responsible for me meeting Dave Gregory, who's my favorite guitar player in the world from XTC, who I eventually had a band with. And I knew, because he was a massive fan of Matt Schofield, I knew Dave was going to be at his gig. So I sort of engineered to meet Dave Gregory that way. But Matt is one of the best guitar players in the world. He
Absolutely.
is astonishing and a really beautiful, beautiful human.
Yeah, and as much as I would recommend the individual blues courses that he teaches, the one that I think is a sleeper course that he has on TrueFire is one called, I think they call it Heroes and Influences. And Matt just steps out there and illustrates how much knowledge he has of playing styles of BB and all the other kings. But the fact is, he talks about them in a detail like a college professor would. He's dedicated his life to studying all of this. Maggie Osterberg wants to know, Dan, what amp do you use at home? Do you play at home? I said that he should get a kickback to Lazy J there because he's got his Lazy J20 right over his shoulder, but maybe victory.
I've had the Lazy J. I reviewed that amp when it came out, probably 13 plus years ago, and I had to have it. And I used that amplifier solidly with my AC30 for a good 10 years. Those two together, astonishing sound. So what amp do I use at home? I will, funnily enough, I've got my live rig at the moment is a new Princeton Reverb, 10-inch, single 10-inch speaker, but I've got an old EV10M in there, of course. Yeah. And I've got a 1959 Vox AC10 Twin, which is a 10-watt amplifier.
Wow.
And I found it in a shed, and it was, I vaguely recognized the Tolex on it. And it's this beautiful fawn thing. Anyway, I set those up at home, and the Vox still sounds really good at low volume. The Princeton, not so much, but it's fine. But
Princeton, even at home, the Princeton wants to be louder than living room volume. It's a really interesting amp. Yeah, because I've
fascinating.
The living room for me right now is a Mojotone Princeton that they're building, and then a 5E3 next to it, and both of those amps want to be too loud in the living room.
Yeah. So that's fascinating about the Princeton. I didn't know this, but the Princeton, as bright as it is, doesn't have a tone, bright cap on it.
Right.
And because I thought we just modded out our Plexi, just wiggled the bright cap off the input, and it's like, oh, that sounds great. Maybe I can do the same thing with the Princeton. Oh no, it's a completely different design, and that all of that top end is inherent in the EQ. But anyway, I'm in love with those two, and I can use them at home quietly, get my sound set up. I've got a new band happening, and I dial in the sounds at home, and it's pretty consistent up to volume level, up to gig levels with those amplifiers. Yes, they're fabulous. The most common thing I use at home is my boss was a Air headphones. I'll go training early in the morning. I'll get back. It'll be 7:15, and I've got about half an hour just on my own to practice. Stick on the Air headphones, put on iReal Pro, and away I go.
Great.
They're great.
Excellent. Actually, one of these, Michael Schneider has a question here that I actually had on my list. When does a starting guitarist, or any guitarist, with have a few pedals, how many pedals do you have when you actually start needing a switcher?
That depends on how many combinations of those pedals that you use. So if you're a guy that just has one pedal, you got 4 overdrive pedals and you never mix them, you just have one on at a time. Yeah, maybe not so much. But if you've got a chorus, a delay, a flanger, 2 overdrive pedals and a fuzz, and then you start noticing that it's affecting your performance, then it's definitely something worthwhile looking into. But again, it all depends on the player. I find it like tonally for me, I can hear it with anything more than 4 pedals, and I can hear the degradation in the signal chain. And of course, depending what the pedals are,
sure.
And of course, yeah, and so there's that side of things. But just for practicality, if you're using combinations and you're getting your sound by using combinations and stacking things, and also depending on the music you play. So when I was in Australia, when the idea started to come together, I was playing with this artist called Max Sharam, and it was amazing music, and it was complex, and there'd be quick changes between really massive, huge guitar sounds to very clean, thin things with a bit of modulation, and then into the echoey. So, and I was using MIDI to do that with, MIDI switching shenanigans, and it just didn't sound very good. I had I could step on. Yeah, the thing that happened was I was stepping on one button and was changing my sound with one button press. When I discovered pedals, it was like, this is it. This is, the first time I played an electric mistress, it's like, this is me forever now. But having to do that music and then jumping around, I'm like, there has to be a better way than this. So, yeah. Nice. Sorry, these answers are gonna. No,
you're great.
I'll do my best, Keith.
We'll stay. We'll stay late. It's later for you than it's for me. Simon is asking, when can I be on TPS? He's trying to get me on the show. When I get to England, boys. Dude. That's right. Yeah, when I get to England.
Yeah. Do you ever get over here? Keith?
No, I don't actually. But the fact is that we were talking before we went live. The people are like, you need to go there, and you should go to Anderton's because we're doing pedals there now. And I'm like, I would just go to see John Cordy and the kid and his wife. I've been working with him for years, but you guys are on the way out to where John is.
Just around the corner.
You're right there.
That would be brilliant fun.
Well, and it's like Jake Loosemore, and there's other kind of I'm kind of connected to that weird Southwest thing there. So
you come into the studio and experience wet dry with like a 100-watt Marshall and 2-rock.
You guys, that's a wet dry rig in the living room now. You infected me long ago, my friend. Long ago. It's a one-way street. Wet dry is a one-way street.
Sorry, 1 second. I got excited and I pulled out my earphone plug.
Attaboy. Somebody was asking that they're late to the party. What's the Esquire in the back? That's the closest thing that I have to a telly right now. I told Dan that I put it there out of emotional support. That an extra Telecaster in the space is why that's there. Let's see. There we are. I'm scrolling. I'm gonna let you loose while I scroll on another question. What?
Sure.
And this is very much. I'll own this. This is a Keith question because there was a time in my life when I took guitar lessons. I took jazz guitar lessons with Rick Beato. So there was a time when I had fantasies of being a jazz guy, and life got in the way. There was a time when I had a weekly straight ahead, any song that came out between 1946 and 1964 was fair game. Wow. Jazz, straight ahead jazz gig. So where did the jazz thing come from for you? because I hear this story arc, but I don't hear the Wes Montgomery parallel that must be there. Something. What is it?
I dreamed of being a professional guitar player, and when I was, I've been playing in bands since I was 16. When I was 19, I moved up. My father had passed away, and I moved up to be with my brother who lived in Mackay. And Mackay is this tiny little town on the north of Queensland. And of course, there's no gigs or anything. But a branch of the Conservatorium of Music had just opened up there, and they were an annex of the Queensland Conservatorium of Music. And they were doing a jazz course. And I thought, I would love to. I didn't really know anything about jazz, but I knew some jazz guitar players who were playing fusion stuff, and they were talking about the harmony, and all their harmony comes from jazz.
So who? Name names.
So there was a amazing guitar player in Australia called Mark Johns.
These are guys who are out there.
These guys in Australia.
Oh, okay, okay, all right.
Oh, yeah. And there was, it'll come to me in a minute. He was this astonishing jazz rock guy, and he would teach. And I didn't understand anything he was going on about. And hearing him play, and I'm like, I really want to understand that. So anyway, his name will come to me in a minute because it's quite important. He was in a band called Crossfire in Australia. So anyway, I auditioned for this course, and I grabbed a bass player and a drummer. I had an audition. I said, you come down here in half an hour. I went to the music store in Mackay, and I said, who here can play drums and play bass? And I grabbed two people out of the music store, put them in my car, and drove them to the audition. I'd never met them before. And just said, play along. Can you play a blues and A? Yep. All right. And that was my audition. I don't know how. I think it was just enthusiasm, but I actually got in. And so I was studying jazz full time at the con, and it changed everything for me. So I learnt the harmony, and I learnt, chords and intervals and all that sort of stuff. But I didn't really discover jazz until later. The music didn't hit me until later. Classical actually hit me before jazz did.
Interesting.
I remember, I used to go into get to the con early and go into the record department and put on Mozart's Death Requiem and just sit there and just be astonished by all of this stuff. And then one of the last lessons we had, the guitar teacher played us Jeff Beck. He played this, what was it? Because We Ended as Lovers. And just the way that he would play, but he was following the changes. He played the melody, he was going through the changes. And I'm like, this is different. I want to know this. And so I got into that. But I always enjoyed jazz, and I'd go down to the clubs, and I knew when to clap after the solos and all that sort of stuff. But
Good.
it wasn't until I heard Pat Martino that, because I learned all my altered scales and all the shenanigans.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I heard Pat Martino that those sounds that I'd been working on for so long started coming together, and I could hear it in what he's playing. I'm like, oh, this is it.
Yeah.
And I just became a massive Pat Martino fan, and I just engulfed everything he did. And very sad I never got to see him play, but I just love jazz so much because all that harmony stuff, the theory came first for me, which was weird.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually the music caught up,
Yeah.
and now I just absolutely adore it.
Yeah. Martino was always a big influence to me because when I was studying with Rick, I would say, what should I be listening to for this lesson? Of course, first lesson with Rick was handwritten and changed to All the Things You Are, Go Home, Learn, and Come Back. That was the first
I
lesson.
saw that. It's such a great video.
On top of his head. Anyway, I used to study martial arts. I studied martial arts all through school, and I got really interested in Japanese poetry. And there was a time when I had a Japanese haiku poetry, like a poetry. This is like before, vlogging, and then before blogging, it was like a listserv. And through friends of friends of friends, Pat Martino, whose wife, at the end of his life, his wife was from Japan, reached out and asked to be on the list. So Pat Martino was on my haiku list for years.
No.
And then through connections in New York, I got to go see him and meet him and hang out with him at the Blue Note. But it's like there aren't, and I used to do jazz promotion on campus, so I got to have dinner with Chick Corea and Pat Metheny and all these people. But I have to say that sitting at a bar with Martino, sipping, a tonic water was a whole other level of don't know what to say. And he was just the sweetest guy.
Is this before the?
No, after the stroke.
After the stroke. Okay.
Yeah, after the stroke. Yeah. By most accounts.
What I found fascinating about that, because there's a documentary where it goes into it, and I think there's an urban myth that people say he forgot how to play guitar, he had to learn to play again, which wasn't quite true.
Right.
He still play, but he didn't know why. He had to find why he was playing. What was it about the stuff that he could? Why do I want to do this? And then he rediscovered the why behind the music, which I love so much.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, this is in me. This is when I want to express myself. I can do this.
Well, and
imagine waking up one day and finding out you could do that.
Right. We don't. Awesome. We don't often have a reason to ask ourselves why, to have that existential moment of where our music comes from, and that he was forced into that by doing that. Yeah. What a great player. So I'm doing questions here. Of all the guitars you have, if you had to have just 3 electrics, which 3? Yep.
It's red, and I've got a 1962. It's an SG, but still technically a Les Paul. That's my latest acquisition, which I'm just so connected to at the moment.
Wait, your new wait, sorry to interrupt. Your new SG is an actual 62?
Yeah. Yeah, I know, it's very silly. I
thought it was a repro. I don't know.
No. So the story behind that goes, Mick got his 345.
Yeah.
And the guy that sold, he got that from Thorpe, but the guy that sold that to Thorpe knew that I was after an SG. And he said, I've got this, and if you want to have a look at it, and I couldn't afford it. But it had like a lot of those guitars do, it had a neck repair.
Sure.
Because in that year, the way that the neck was attached to the body was quite weak.
The tendon was short.
And exactly.
Yeah.
So it had a neck repair, and apart from that, it was, one of the pickups had been replaced by Gibson. So one of them was a PAF and the other one was a T-top.
Okay.
Anyway, I played it and I'm like, it just came at the wrong moment. I couldn't, no way. But I just, what do I need to sell? And bless him, the guy was like, okay, I'll let you pay it off.
You can work it out.
Which I did over a couple of months, and I just adore that. And the other is the acoustic that I had made by Johnny Kincaid, and there's a video of that whole process.
I remember, yeah.
And that is the most astonishing guitar.
Do you play that guitar out?
Yeah, so actually I've got my new band, Danalogs. Our first gig is next week on Thursday in Swindon, and that guitar features in quite a number of tunes.
Good for you.
It's like, it was funny. So I would come in and find my daughter playing it, and she's got her rings on and stuff, and I'd pick it up. I could feel where all the jewelry's been sort of mashing into the wood, and I'm like, that's great, because I don't have to worry about putting the first nick on it now.
Amen.
And it is the most glorious thing, and I just want to play it.
Yeah, that's great. I have a people have seen it here before. I have an acoustic that was built by Adam Buckwald at Circle Strings up in Burlington, and it was built with black walnut that was cut on the farm I grew up on.
Oh man, I love that.
A great story.
I love
right?
those stories.
Yeah. Here's another question. Crazy Jack 9-volt battery amplifiers. Maybe we all know the answer. Dan, is it true that tellies can do anything? I don't know if we have to talk about that or if we just say amen.
Just say absolutely 100% yes. I could take this guitar to any gig and it would be great. We all know the telly, the rock thing and the country thing. Go and have a listen to this amazing telly jazz guy who passed away. Oh man, again, his name will come to me.
They could all go look. They could all go watch.
You probably know him. Just had the best telly tone.
Well, the two telly jazz guys that most people talk about are Ed Bickert from Canada, and
Ed Bickert's one of them,
and then Ted Green.
Ted Green.
Yeah. Well, I had Tim Lurch on the show,
Yes.
and we just talked about our favorite Telecaster jazz players for an hour. Yeah.
Well, of course, he was a student of Ted's, and you hear it in his playing, and
Right.
oh man, we loved our time with him, and
he's such a sweetheart.
What a beautiful human, and
Yeah.
so generous, and
Right.
he just wanted to sit down and play and jam, and I'm like, I got a bit nervous actually playing with him.
Sure.
I rarely get nervous, but he's like, "Come on, Dan, let's play some changes." I'm like, okay.
That's great. Let's see here. And I assume if it had to be one guitar, it would be a guitar that you're holding like a security blanket. Yeah.
Every day.
Every day.
So interesting thing about this guitar is a friend of mine who was actually teching for Robin and for Matt at the time, and he now techs for The Who, for Pete Townsend.
Wow.
Simon, he's Simon.
I know who you're talking about.
Simon
right?
Law. Yeah, Simon Law.
Semi-local there.
And this is before he started building guitars. And I said, so Simon worked at the music store in Swindon. And so I met him years ago, and I was managing, like I'd book bands for the local Ozzy pub, and Simon would come down and do sounds. And anyways, I said to Simon that I wanted a Telecaster, but I don't have any money. I've got like very small amount of cash. Can you help me find something in my budget? And, if he had been building guitars at that time, I would have had him make me one, but this is before all that. Anyway, he found this for me in America, and he says, mate says it's a really great guitar. And it turned up, and I plugged it in, and this guitar plugged in has always sounded astonishing. It's always had something about it that is just incredible, but the nitro hadn't cured on the neck.
Right, you said. Right.
Now, if I had walked into a music store and picked this up, I never would have bought it. And I think that's why this guitar was still hanging around.
Sure.
But I couldn't take it back and get my money back and try something else. So I had no choice but to stick with this guitar. Right? I had to make it work. And after years of, getting steel wool and just trying to rub down a bit and get as much of the clag off the back as I can, I've done over 2,000 gigs with this guitar.
Wow.
And it just went, and just opened up. And now people pick it up and just go, "Oh, this guitar is astonishing." And I'm like, it really wasn't when I got it.
Huh.
And just to finish that story off, that took me 2,000 gigs. I've seen Robin Ford do that to a guitar in half an hour. He was looking for a gold top, a 52 gold top, and the guys at ATB Guitars in Cheltenham,
Yep.
they had two, and I said, Robin, we found these guitars and we think you really like them. Come down and there was one guitar that I didn't think he'd like, because it was like it was brand new. It had never been played.
Wow.
Right? Still had the old tagger on it.
Yep.
That's enough of that one. You know, stop looking, move on.
Good
and
God.
and I said, I played it and it was like, ugh. You know, it just hadn't been played.
Yeah.
It sounded congested, and there was another two that were really worn and stuff, and they were nice. Anyway, I'm there talking to the owner at ATB and
Mike.
just having a chat, and Mike and Robin picks up this like as new 52, and he starts playing it, and over the course he just plays it for half an hour, and we start looking at each other going, what is actually happening here? You can hear the guitar start to open up. It was wild. And at the end of half an hour, Robin goes, well, I guess it's this one. You know, and that was the
this
guitar.
one now. Wow.
It was the most. I'm really glad I had a witness there.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe it if you know. But even Mike, who's an incredible.
Sure, seen it
been
all.
around these guitars forever. He's like,
Yep.
That's wild. Absolutely wild.
Nice. We had a mutual friend once say hi, Jeff. McElwain,
Jeff.
drop it in. There you go.
Hey, buddy.
Let's see here. What are you playing? What are you practicing these days? What is it that you work on after how many years have you been playing, and what is it that you work on now?
Oh man, I got my first guitar when I was 3, maybe 4. So
Wow.
nearly 50 years. Now, yeah, so I've been playing a long time. I've always been absolutely fascinated by the guitar. For me, the guitar came before the music. You know, lots of players say I'm a musician first, guitar second. Not me. I'm all about the guitar. The music came later. I just wasn't exposed to a lot of guitar stuff growing up. But my mum was pregnant with me when she was learning to play guitar. And I remember it was Christmas when actually it might have been 4. It was Christmas when I was 4. I think my brother was 8. And he got one of those toy guitars and those cardboard boxes, and he just hit the strings, and I freaked out just hearing the sound of the guitar, and I've been fascinated by it ever since. So what am I practicing? I've been learning these songs. The beautiful thing about this new band, I'm playing songs I've never played before. So it's
great.
all 70s. It's all tunes from the 70s.
Nice.
So we're doing Genesis and 10cc and Supertramp and some old prog stuff, and it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Steely Dan, Toto, but it's a lot.
Yeah,
And
I was going to
so
say
I've
there's nothing on that list that you go, oh, that's easy.
Yeah. This isn't a jam G.
Yeah, no, right. There's no just follow me happening in this.
No,
Right.
no, it's great.
Yeah, right.
But it's also cool because my wife was a singer, and she was in a band actually with the original keyboard player from XTC. Amazing singer. But when we got together and we had kids, and she's been an amazing mum, but she's actually now in the band with me playing rhythm guitar and doing BVs, and she's incredible. She just wants to be at the back, sort of behind Dougie the drummer, but doing a thing. So that's wonderful. But I've been practicing these songs. What it has reminded me of, I spent a lot of time doing the altered thing and trying to get to grips with all those silly things, and they're great. But what doing these songs has reminded me of the joy of playing along with records. Playing along with Toto and Jeff Porcaro and these different rhythm things. I've always been fascinated by rhythm, probably because I'm not very good at it. I'm you might have noticed I get a bit excited and
a little emotional.
Yeah, exactly. And that comes along in my playing. I think I just get so excited to play the next note. And because of that, there's nothing about me is cool. Like, there's nothing laid back and be like, oh, yeah, and I'll just, there's none of that going on with me. And I've had to work really hard to sit with, different rhythm sections. And bless him, my drummer, Dougie, who I've been playing with for over 20 years now, and he's such an amazing drummer. But he gets a bit excited with me as well. And there are times our old bass player would say, oh, my back is so sore from trying to hold you guys back for the whole gig.
That's great.
But playing along with these tunes, and what's really great with those Wazza headphones, you can hear when you're sitting, and you can hear when you're not. And it's yeah. So what I'm practicing at the moment is I'm practicing playing along with these tunes, and just I want to feel like I'm doing a take with the recording, and get the feel of that right. And it's been just the most selfishly joyous thing, just really getting inside these tunes, and really wonderful.
Do you know that the band concept sounds fantastic and too much fun to a guy my age? Do you know the band, the guitarist Duke Levine?
No.
Oh my God! We're giving you a big gift here. So Duke Levine is a player. He's a sideman to the Stars. Been touring with Bonnie Raitt the last couple of years. His brother owns a vintage store in New Jersey, but he's originally from Worcester, Massachusetts. And when Rick was at New England Conservatory, Duke is a couple of years older than him, but he had gone back to school, and they did a lot of duo jazz gigs together. And so Duke has a great channel, but Duke has a couple of bands that gig around Boston. One of them is called Sweet Sounds of the 70s. So you need to Google Sweet Sounds of the 70s and Duke Levine to see all these amazing covers of tunes from the 70s that they almost always work up as instrumentals, which is so cool. Very different than the concept you guys are working on, but it just, again, Rick and I get accused of this all the time, that we overemphasize music of that time. And I'm like, you know what? I'll watch your video when you overemphasize the music of this time. Good for you. Do completely. That. But I can only talk from my own life,
Yeah. That music, there is so much joy in it. And what I really want to happen, one thing that Mick and I discovered, so we do these things called experience days. Yeah. We discovered that it was, especially during COVID, we were sat in a little room looking into a box, and there was this community that was around us that we loved, and we wanted to let them experience what it was like being in the studio and play loud amps and all that sort of stuff. And the joy of hanging out with these people who were into the same stuff that you are. I've always said that being into guitar and being into tone, that's a lot to have in common with someone. Mick and I are from different worlds and different playing styles, but because we understand what being connected and being able to flow, it's the closest thing to magic that we have. I truly believe that. And I agree. That is such a thing to have in common. The thing with the music from the 70s is all these guys had that. There was no going into a studio in the 70s if you weren't awesome, right? You had to do it. Steve Lukather, all that stuff, and one take, and the guy's an absolute genius, but they did it with such joy. And the whole goal with this thing is I just want to do music. I want to bring a whole bunch of people together and just say, let's just have some fun. Let's just sing along to these tunes that meant so much to us as musicians, because let's be honest, there's not going to be a whole heap of ladies at the gig, which is great. My wife's friends will be there. So there you go. There we go.
There you go. Yeah, that's right.
But there'll be a whole lot of musicians and guitar players there. And this music, I think, is so important because we hear these songs and these changes. It's like, it's so beautiful. And I don't hear a whole lot of it now. I
think you hit on it.
I think it's there.
Yeah, I think you hit on it.
I don't hear it.
When you talked about the reason behind doing experience days is the same reason that I called the channel 5 Watt World and not Keith's Place. I wanted to make it clear that this was a place that people could connect around their commonality around music and guitar playing. And it's exactly what you're talking about. And I knew that we had always had that in common, that sense of community. And also it's, I've had a few people say over the years, because I've encouraged them to do so, is you need to figure out a way to play in front of with other people. You need to be not afraid to sing. I had a guy in the chat once say, a guy in the chat said, I play in a band 3 nights a week and I've never sat in my living room and sung a song for my wife. And the people in the chat were really funny. They're like, what if she paid you? You know, like, but the point is, like, we think that this is a huge risk. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? You know, and to have a community of people that can relate to each other. And especially, I don't want to get too far into this because I have a background in sociology, but the reality is that men just don't have friends like they used to have. And all of those guys in bands in the 70s lived together. They were all mates. They wrote those songs together. There isn't that joy that came from creating together. The bands blew up for the same reasons, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
But I also not being involved in the prog thing that I wasn't in the UK, like, you know, the Tin Spirits, and we do a lot of work with Marillion and see their fans, you know, and there'd be a group of 5 guys that had been following Marillion for 20 years. And that these 5 guys would come together and go to every Marillion gig they could possibly do.
That's great.
And they shared that. Music, and especially of that time, it just had this way of bringing people together. It was just joyous. And, you know, I feel at the moment, like, we know with Oasis coming back, and there's this people remembering what that was like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel that we're on the, you know, it ebbs and flows, and I feel we're going into an up section now, which feels really beautiful.
Nice. Lyle at Psionic Audio wants to thank you for having XTC and Crowded House in the conversations on TPA. Keep bringing them back. And that's my transition. That's my transition to thanking you for being here all together. Thanks for working this out. It's really been a pleasure.
Of course. It's an honor, honestly, Keith. I mean, I've loved what you do. And I remember watching your mini docs on the Telecaster and you know, and it done so well. And yeah, it's an honor, mate. Great to finally meet you. Well, thanks. Well, we'll figure out a day when you do an experience day and I'll come. Yes, that would be awesome. That would be the way to do it. Come for a community moment. That would be very on brand for 5 Watt World. Love it. Be brilliant. Very good. All right. Well, thanks, Dan. I'm gonna have that guy who played us in, much to your dismay, perhaps, play us out. Okay. That's what we do. We bookend it. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank TrueFire. Go ahead and hit the links in the description to let TrueFire know that you got there through 5 Watt World, and they stay loving us, and that's a good thing. And again, thanks to everybody, and thank you, Dan. And like I said, I'm going to go to the out. Dan, if you hang out afterwards, once we stop being live, we can do a quick debrief if that's cool. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And thanks, everyone. It's great to hang out, and be good. Take care.